So let's take a look at the images we're going to be using. So I'm going to do these 4 images. I've got this one that all these we've done in the course, and I've got this one from Dubrovnik, and then this one from Hong Kong, this one from the Oregon coast. Actually, technically, this is the Washington coast, and then back in Croatia at Plitvice Lakes. So these are all of my, you'll notice these end in the PM here. These are all of my what we call print masters. So as we've gone through the course, you saw me make these images and take them through the first stage of processing, just kind of that technical check. Did they make the cut? They move on to creative processing. Once we're done with creative processing, we kind of sort of freeze the image. That's what we call the print master. And so this is something that should have all of the resolution from camera, but we don't have anything sized yet, and we don't have anything where we're looking at it to say, oh, this is going to be for that, this is going to be whatever the sizing is. We don't worry about the sizing until now. It's time to print, so now we worry about the sizing. So let's jump into the website here and take a look and see what happens when we're looking for these pieces of information that we know a little bit about now, and we want to know what's the best result for how we're going to create our beautiful prints, hopefully beautiful prints coming from an online service. So let's see what they tell us. So when we first look, we've got the prints here, of course, and we've got these 2 items we're going to focus on: photo prints and GClay prints. The GClay prints, that's exactly what you're doing in your whole process with getting these prints out on the printer. GClay is a fancy French term that pretty much means you squirt something or you squirt ink. And so that's where it's an inkjet print. Where the standard photo prints, they're actually using a very sophisticated machine where it has some lasers. They'll call it some lasers anyway. So it's like a big laser printer, but it's so much more because the paper that you're putting into it is photosensitive. So it's light sensitive photo paper. And so they're going to tell you all about how wonderful it is and all the other good stuff. Certainly we can order now. But we want to get to a little bit of nitty gritty of it. And so we can search around and we can say, where are we supposed to go? We want to understand what are we supposed to do to get these things uploaded properly. So let's figure that out. We do have a help here, and so we have, this help overview, all sorts of good things. They have tutorials where they're just going to show you video tutorials on what to do, and certainly they got all these other good things that you might want to think about. So let's go all the way down here, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at this help center. Now, we probably are going to do the same thing where we're going to do help overview up here. So this is the exact same thing as clicking on this help center. But with so many options there, I was just like, when I was doing this, I found this to be really helpful. But anywho, here we are. We have some video tutorials for sure that they can do. We've got online help. That's probably what we want to look at. And so we can look at some different pricing items. Where we want to look at is the requirements to upload photos. So let's take a look at that. And 2 things here. First off, the system requirements: digital pictures, they only accept JPEG, and they have to be in the RGB file format. They don't show it right here, but we're also going to need to be in the sRGB color space. Anything beyond that, we might get colors that are just going to look a little odd or out of gamut or whatever the case is, and we don't want to mess with that. So we will be forcing our images to the sRGB color space when we're in Photoshop. If you remember from when we were processing our images, we talked about that a little bit, and then really, quite frankly, I ended up just leaving most everything in the ProPhoto color space because it's the widest there is. But I also taught you how to soft proof. Well, here we're unable to soft proof because we don't have their profiles, so we can't do the soft proofing here. So we're just going to have to trust that sRGB is going to be good enough. And since that compresses the color so much, it's pretty much going to work. I'm sure it's going to work just fine. So let's take a look at the resolution. We're going to focus our efforts on 8x10. And so we're looking at 2000 by 2500. So if we did the math, you just knock a 0 off there. They're wanting 250 pixels per inch. So that helps us understand what we need to set it to, and then we can use our default standards for sharpening. We can then apply those, and that makes sense. The resolution is all about that physical size and what do we do in order to get the sharpening the way we want it. And so we'll talk through that with these 4 images now, and we're going to take a look at the thought process going through now using 250 pixels per inch as our desired size and what we're doing there. All right, so here we are in Photoshop with our first image, and I'm going to do a little more simplification on these images when I print to these online labs. You'll recall when we went through this image in the print preparation, we got really complex with the sharpening because we used the Smart Sharpen and we were looking at how to use the different items with fading the highlight and shadow areas. That's not something that I feel is completely necessary when going with the sRGB and in going with this particular print method where we're going to use the light sensitive paper rather than inkjet printing. But you know what? That's why just after this, you're going to be able to see a video that says, okay, how did these things come together? So we'll have an assessment and we'll be able to look at and compare what we did in the lab on our own machines and what we did here with this. So let's get to sharpening and, or I should say sizing and sharpening this image. So I'm going to go and take my width times height times resolution, and I'm going to go 10 inches. I'm going to go 8 inches, and we're going to do the 250 pixels per inch. Now I've got a fairly severe crop here because I'm doing 8 by 10, and this is where I have to make a decision. What's important? This element back up here, I just have to say, is not as important as the boat down here. So I'm going to go and I'm going to really make this boat the center of attention. And if I were to even crop even more like this, and so I've totally gotten rid of this castle on the rock, and that would probably be a fairly decent crop. It's really not my favorite crop of this image, but it's going to be doable for an 8 by 10 print. It's just one of those restrictions, you know, because of the format of the print that we just have to do. And so now that it's the 8 by 10 at 250 pixels per inch, we can do our sharpening the way we want to do our sharpening. And this has to be saved out as a JPEG, so I'm not going to be too concerned about, you know, saving a master 8 by 10 file. We certainly could do that, but here, let's do this. We'll go ahead and convert this to Smart Object still. And then when we apply the filter, we can always go back and change it. And so when we get our print back, we can look at it and say, oh, it screwed up. We don't like it. Let's go back to something else. All right, so let's do our math again here. I'm going to probably start out at about 8 or 9. That's usually my standard for a threshold of 8 or 9. And then I'm going to head on over and I'm going to do this just so I can really type in this math. I should have left it there. So 250. So 1/2 of 1%, right? So times 0.01 and then divided by 2. And so that leaves us with 1.25 radius. So my radius at 1.3 is just fine. I could go down to 1.2. That's just fine. So right now what I need to think about is our amount and our threshold. So let's go through these terminologies just one more time because we just want to make sure we understand exactly what we're dealing with here in this unsharp mask dialog box. So the amount is about how strong of the effect that we want to do. How, you know, is it going to be just a little bit? Is it going to be a lot? And so we have this little preview box here. We can see it as I click it. There's no effect. As I release it, it has the full effect of the unsharp mask. The radius is how far away from the edge will it be affecting. So a 1.3 pixel radius is really tight. This is the one that we want to think about modifying depending on how far away our viewing is for this image. Now, 8 by 10 print is usually not something that is intended to be viewed, you know, like 5, 6, 7 feet away. We would tend to view that a little more closely, a little more intimately. So in the neighborhood between 18 inches, maybe 26, 30 inches, somewhere in there, that's where we're going to be. So this would require some experimentation. Use a larger amount for an intended further distance away, a smaller amount for closer in, or use this creatively. If you want to go more granular and fine and minute, then you're going to do a smaller amount. If you want to go more chunky and more rough, then you're going to do the bigger amount. But that 1/2 of 1% is just a good starting point for you. And then the threshold is where it analyzes that edge and it says, how much do I need to have a change between those tones before we actually have an effect being made? Where out here in the water, there's, not going to be any effect until you get to these little white caps, and then we have a big effect, and then those will be sharpened, but the regular part of the water will not be sharpened. Let's go take a look. You remember in the main part of the course, we had some discussion about getting the wall to show out better, and we really dialed in really strongly with that smart sharpen, and then we balanced out with how the walls, or I should say the roofs were showing up. And with this particular filter, with this particular item, we're not able to dissect it quite so much. I feel that this is a little too strong. So I'm going to go back to about 105%, and that's still pretty strong. So let's go down to 95%. There we go. As I click over here, I still have a little bit happening in the wall and a lot of it happening up here still. I'm gonna pull this back even further, go down to 90. We want it to be just barely visible on a standard screen. If you have a 4K screen, you're gonna hardly be able to see this at all, I'm sure, because the resolution is just so tight, it'll be really hard to pick it out. 4K or 5K screen is gonna be really hard to pick out. But with a standard HD screen like I'm working on, it's really easy to pick out. So I know I need to pull that back, and I should still see a good difference, but it just needs to be just a tiny bit. All right, so let's cook that in. And I should not say cook that in because it's a smart filter. We can go back and change it anytime we want. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and save this. And so I'm going to look at this. Right now I have my print master files, and I'm going to create a folder here, and I'm going to call it MPix. And then I'm going to say TIFFs as a subfolder in there. And then this is not going to be the PM anymore. It's going to be the 8x10. And then what I'm going to be able to do is save that TIFF, which saves this information and saves the 16-bit color and all that good stuff. Now it's time to flatten it and make it so we can actually send it to MPix for stuff that they're wanting, stuff that they're able to receive. So let's first go back here, and we're going to go through, I should say, we're going to click through these TIFF options first. Now we're going to go back over here. We're going to go to Layer, and we're going to go to Flatten Image, which applies all that stuff. And now we're going to go first off to 8 bits a channel, and then we're going to convert to color profile. And we're going to run this at sRGB. We're coming from ProPhoto. All right, so this image is ready to go. We just need to save it as a JPEG now. So we're going to go here. I'm going to create another folder, call it JPEGs. And then we're going to call this a JPEG. And we'll go ahead and embed the color profile. And here we go. Now with our JPEG options, we definitely want to do a 12 here to give it the most information, the most high quality image that we can give it. Now we'll hit OK. And we're good to go. We have our first image ready to go. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause the recording. I'm going to process all that stuff, and then we'll get back into it when we go and actually make that order. Okay, we're done with all our work in Photoshop with all of these images, and what I did is, of course, just a quick review. I've got the TIFFs where we have them as smart objects so we can look at them later and go back to the sharpening and make an effect change. We could change the color a little bit if we wanted to because they're all 16-bit color. And then we have this folder of JPEGs, which are all going to be the 8-bit color, and they're all sRGB. And so, of course, the file naming is all what we need it to be as well. Okay, so now it's time to get back into the MPix website and place this order. Let's take a look here at these two options really quick. Again, we looked at photo prints. This is what we're going to do. It's slightly cheaper. And this is what we'll do. This is a standard item where they're going to go on photographic paper. So it is a light sensitive paper. And they have a couple of different options. Let's take a look at their papers and pricing really quick. And so they call this their e-surface papers, their most popular photographic paper. And what this is all about is pretty much not glossy, it's not matte, it's something like right in the middle. It's kind of a semi-gloss type approach as far as how the surface comes along. You can add this luster coating, which adds a little bit of a texture, a little bit of a, it's like a spray coating basically, a little bit of a protection, but I'm not going to do that. I don't find that too useful, but sometimes it adds a nice thing, a nice look. For my black and white print, I want to do this true black and white paper. So that's going to be most likely an Ilford branded paper, and it has a regular just black and white approach to life. So I will not be doing the metallic paper here, but they do have that for some special effects if you wanted to do that. Notice they have their popular sizes listed, and we can just see really quickly. So I'm going to spend about $2.79 per print here, and then when I go down to the black and white, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, $3.52. So let's take a look now at the GClay prints. So we have some details here on GClay. So I want to highlight they're using 7 dye-based inks. So whatever printer they're using, it is dye-based, and there's only 7 of them. It's not like the Canon printers that we're using or the Epson printers that we're using in the course. These are, I don't know if it's a high production quality printer or just what. I have no clue what it is. They also don't give us any different information as it relates to the resolution. So I would only be able to assume that we want to do the same resolution if you wanted to go this route with the GClay printing. So we have either a fine art or high gloss paper with these. And of course we can look at their pricing. They don't have much on the FAQ for that, but it's all good. We're going to go with the other one. So I'm going to hit this order now button, and it will totally change everything about how the website looks. We're going into their order process. Let's go ahead and add our photos. And we're going to look for our JPEGs folder, and I'm just going to upload all of these photos. And we'll say done. And so now what we're going to look at is going to take the 8x10, and I'll hit the plus button so I can tell it we want one of them, right? And the paper will go with E-surface, no texture, no mounting or anything. So then we'll take this one, 8x10 plus 1, we'll change this, and we're going to go down here to true black and white. So this is quite easy to do. This is literally the first time I've done this process in years. I looked at the front end of the website before I started this video. This part, this is all me doing it for the first time. It's been years since I've done it. So we're still on 8x10. Yes, that's what I want. And 8x10. And let's see, we can do the E-surface, the metallic, or the black and white. I think I'll still just do the E-surface on this. So now that I'm done getting all these set, I have one print each, and this one is going to do true black and white. We can actually, if we were to click on this item here, we're able to bring up a crop, and so we can go ahead and crop some things. In the original graph that we looked at, little table we looked at where we determined it was 250 pixels per inch that they wanted, they have a thing that shows they can go down to, they're willing to accept down to 100 pixels per inch on the image. So if we wanted to crop this in, we theoretically could and still get a decent 8x10 image out of it. You know me, I like my quality. I like to have as much resolution as is reasonable to have, and 250 is definitely a reasonable resolution here. All right, so we are pretty much ready to go. I just need to go and hit my review order. And so we've got the ocean waves, and it's really nicely laid out, all these items that we're doing here. Take a look at our product summary so we can see what's going on with this. $11.89. I'm going to have some shipping, obviously, so it's not too shabby. All right, I suppose if I wanted to order more products, I could add that additional item for the metallic, but I'm really not that interested, so let's just hit go to cart and be done with it. Oh man, look how many details we have here. This is pretty sweet. Let's take a look. We have the edit crop again here. We can rotate the image, add some retouching. They offer a few retouching services. That's good. Ability to add these different coatings or textures to it. As I'm looking through here, I'm just wanting to see if there's anything that I want to make sure I click do not color correct, because they do have some auto color correction going on most likely. And so when I hit the checkout, maybe it'll be there. So shipping for $4, you bet. That'll be great. Wonderful. I will ship it to work. That'll be fine. Ah, here it is. First item, do not color correct. And then they're going to give us a huge warning. The reason I like to do this without any color correction is to, if I have them do that color correction, I don't know if my process is any good or not, because then they might be messing up the color. And if it comes back and it's off, then I don't have anything to compare it to. So when I bring that image back and I compare it to what I see on screen and I see those differences, then I can start to make those modifications I need, because this is not a perfectly color calibrated working environment. When we're dealing with our own printers, we have pretty much a perfectly color calibrated working environment, because we've calibrated our screen, we've used the ICC profiles from the printer, and we're telling Photoshop you're going to use these colors from the printer and it's going to be great, and it generally looks really good, very, very, very close. With this, I don't have a profile from them, and when I don't have a profile from them, I'm unable to do that soft proofing, so I can't predict what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to go on. So I don't want them to do any color correction, so I'm able to just put it up there. I know there's going to be differences because there's a difference in a print and screen viewing, but then I'm going to be able to say, oh, how far off am I? And then I can make my adjustments accordingly, and it's going to be really nice that way. All right, so I'm going to fill in this information and we'll get this order going. All right, so I've saved my billing information and it's all nice and taken care of. That shipping is going to be fine. Let's go ahead and confirm this order. And here they're running it down for me again with my Visa ending in those 4 numbers, which I'll be blocking out for you, and place the order. And there we have it. We're done. So that's pretty sweet. We have 30 minutes to cancel the order if we want to. Thank you for watching, and take a look at this link right here. I've been talking about a little bit regarding this idea of a course. You might be wondering, what's that about? I actually have an online print course that this particular video is a bonus for, and I've decided to put it out here on YouTube because I just want people to know and understand, number one, how to utilize a service like this to get the best results for you, but also to understand we have something that we can go so much more deeply into this. And if you like the idea of taking your prints, taking your images to that next purpose, that next level, that next woohoo, it's awesome stuff, printing just might be for you. For me, printing is the gold standard for my photography. If I can get a fantastically beautiful, awesome gallery quality print, I just tend to have an emotional reaction I just don't have otherwise. It makes it tangible, makes it physical, makes it more lasting and more powerful. And if that's something that you want to dive into, then take a look at that link, take a look at that course, and see if that's something you'd be interested in. I'd love to have you come along and make some awesome prints together. So the next video coming out will be an analysis of the prints I just made here in this video, and we will take a look at and see not only how the sharpening happened and was that a good decision that we made, because I just applied the same sharpening to every image, and then we'll certainly look at that color quality and we'll be able to understand, did I do the right thing because my monitor is calibrated, but I have a certain working environment. When I view that image, how is it going to be interpreted? So we'll have an analysis after the fact, and we'll then be able to make decisions to modify what we're doing in the computer so we can get even better prints out of a very affordable service like MPix. Until next time, happy shooting!